Hey guys, Ramsey here. Welcome to another video. Tonight we have a late night insight video, and it's on a fragrance that I've tested a couple times. I've had a chance to wear it to bed, and I actually really like it. So this is the second time that I've had a chance to wear this to bed, and I just figured I'd do a late night insight video because not only is this a fragrance I've never talked about on the channel and I don't own a bottle of, but it's actually a house that I've never talked about on the channel. I know of them, I've heard of them, I've had people recommend the fragrance house to me, but this is actually the very first time that they are showing up on Channel Ram. And the house today is called Pierre Guillaume, is how I believe you pronounce this gentleman's name. He is the brand owner and perfumer, and I think he's actually the perfumer, unlike some brands who claim to be the owner slash perfumer. I think he actually is. His house used to be called Parfumerie Generale. Sorry for my butchering of the French language there, but that's what it used to be called. And this fragrance we're going to talk about today is called Papyrus de Ciane. Okay, and so now this fragrance is actually known as number 24 in their lineup. They're all numbered. And I'm going to read you a little blurb about this house, since this is actually the first time that this house is showing up on Channel Ram. And we'll talk a little bit about this one. And this is a house I would love to explore more. But here's the little blurb according to Parfumo. Pierre Guillaume is an absolute shooting star of the current perfume scene. Bold statement. Born in 77 in Avrennes as the child of a chemist who produced chemicals for industry in his own factory, he specialized in fine chemicals, i.e. manufacturing for cosmetics and perfumery. In 2002, he founded his own brand, Parfumerie Generale, and very quickly established himself successfully in the niche market. His primarily unisex composed fragrances are numbered consecutively, carrying their name only in the subtitle, and are serially filled in classic-looking transparent and solid glass bottles to eliminate any prior judgments, masculine, feminine, luxurious, complex, simple, natural, traditional, modern, etc., and make possible an immediate, non-preconceived encounter. Pierre Guillaume's perfumes, which have been enthusiastically criticized by experts, see themselves as artistic but not too artistic. He attaches great importance to wearability. We'll talk a little bit about that. Very modern works of perfume in which tradition and high-tech are applied in equal measure. He does not emphasize a non-synthetic, all-natural composition and production, which is very difficult to maintain in real terms anyways, but uses the technique and method that best serve the desired expression in each use. Olfactory treading of new ground is the declared goal of Pierre Guillaume, and the 25 fragrances that the enterprising and prolific Pierre Guillaume has already released under his fledgling brand are astonishingly pioneering achievements that have the potential to become modern classics. Wow. How's that for a little blurb? And I'll read you a little bit about what they say of this particular one. Papyrus de Ciane. Papyrus from the Arethuse fountain to the meandering dark waters of Ciane, the elegant sway of intense green plumes, galbanum, broom, mild plant note, creamy, woody, and mousse de saxe. So there you have it. That's just a little rundown, if you will, of the fragrance. And so let's talk a little bit about this perfume. Actually, I'm going to do a fresh spray because even though I have about a 4, maybe even going on 5-hour dry down now, I've been wearing this a bit. Stayed home today with my daughter, and so it's Friday night, and so I've got some free time. So let's get started. I actually really like this fragrance, and the reason I like it, instantly, right off of the bat, it reminds me of a couple of my favorite fragrances. One is actually, I think, the niche fragrance of 2023, in my personal opinion, and that is De Cendres. If you've ever smelled Les Abstraits de Cendres, I think that this is an absolutely brilliant creation by Eugene and Antoine Lee. And if you've smelled De Cendres, you know that it's sort of... so the reason that I say it smells like De Cendres, but not really, it doesn't really smell exactly like anything, but it plays in the ballpark of De Cendres, and of course the fragrance that I think inspired De Cendres, which is Aramis Devin. And Devin is a green, masculine, Beautiful galbanum. All three of these fragrances we're going to discuss today have beautiful galbanum. And this particular one, Papyrus de Ciane, is no different at all. It opens up with a green galbanum note that is actually pretty abrasive. It's almost like, it's almost like a metal scrubber just rubbing against a pan, a very abrasive galbanum. And actually that really caught my attention because I like fragrances that have this clash of notes, and it's very scratchy and slightly boozy smelling galbanum in the top. And very green, of course, green galbanum. And what is interesting to me is what ends up happening with this fragrance is that it sort of turns into this. It starts off very abrasive and scratchy, and it turns into this very fresh and airy fragrance. So it's much airier than De Cendres, which again, I think is the fragrance of 2023 for me. We're at the end of 23. This came out in early 23. This is also a very intense wear. Like if you like fragrances that are thick and heavy and wear very intensely, this is one such fragrance to check out. And ditto for Devin. I actually really like Devin. Even in its modern form, apparently it's still good, but I would go for the vintage bottle if you can. But what happens is this particular fragrance, Papyrus de Ciane, okay, apparently this one's number 24 in the list. It sort of very quickly, and it's already done it, it's already gone through this very quick transition. That abrasive, scratchy galbanum that opens up seems to all of a sudden give way to this very fresh, airy, very buttoned up, masculine type perfume, okay? And it's much airier and much lighter than De Cendres or Devin, but it sort of has that DNA about it, that style, if you will. And as it dries, that sharp clash of notes that I talked about in the beginning sort of starts to give way. And what it gives way to is it settles down to this very proper vintage style masculine, but in a modern niche creation, if that makes sense. And so what it turns into is almost like, sticking with the Aramis theme, it's almost like it reminds me a little bit of a modern niche version of Tuscany per Uomo. And what's interesting is, Tuscany per Uomo has this Mediterranean feel about it, obviously, right? Tuscany. But this basically has this huge wearability to it, because when you first smell this fragrance, like I'm in the dry down right now here, deep dry down, and it's so wearable. You could wear this to something where you had to be dressed up in a suit. You could wear it with something where you had to be in a polo. You could wear it to work. You could wear this to church. You could wear this to a date. I mean, you could wear this anywhere. This is extremely wearable, traditional, and even though it's supposed to be unisex, I think this fragrance definitely leans masculine, if that makes sense. Look at the type of fragrances that I'm putting it with. Masculine perfume instantly jumped out to me. Even though they say that these are unisex, this particular one of the bunch, and maybe that's why somebody sent this to me. I forgot who sent this to me, by the way, but whoever you are, thank you very much. This came out in 2010, I should mention. So even though this gentleman founded his brand in 2002, this particular one is from 2010. But what ends up happening is this very Mediterranean, fresh, gentleman style fragrance seems to emerge. And what's very interesting is that wearability factor that Pierre obviously puts a premium on from reading that little blurb is definitely here. 100% the wearability factor is there. And there's a note in here that mixes with the galbanum in the top called broom. And broom apparently is a Mediterranean flower that can sort of smell sometimes of bitter fruits, sometimes of honey, and sometimes almost like this fresh orange blossom, which is kind of how I'm describing this airy freshness of the fragrance. But what happens as it continues to dry down, and I'm smelling it even 4 hours in, the fragrance sort of has this grape-like smell. Sometimes it feels like grape soda, but really just like this grape smell. And apparently broom can come off smelling like that. It's a Mediterranean flower that sort of has the freshness. If you know sort of how orange blossom ordinarily imposes this sort of fresh feel to a perfume, it has that, but imagine like a fresh smelling grape. like a grape laundry sheet, if that makes sense. And that's exactly what this fragrance starts turning into. It starts turning into this fresher take with that grape-like tint, but very, very upscale. It has this upscale feel to it. Very fresh. There's a freshness to it. It's not overpowering or overbearing. When you first spray it in the top, you will get that very abrasive, scratchy, green, galbanum, and that's why instantly I thought of Descendres and Devin, and then that goes away very quickly though, and it turns into a very gentleman style fragrance. Cannot harp on that point enough. And so as it dries, it becomes more and more wearable, like we talked about, and so it starts turning into this dusty, green sort of, fresh grape smell, which sounds strange, but it's actually very appealing. I actually really like what it turns into. And so as the fragrance works its way into its base, there's a very famous note in here called mousse de saxe. And that is actually a famous perfume base created by Delaire. And supposedly this particular base, extremely popular in old vintage perfumes over the last 100 years. But it's supposedly made up of things like anise, or this licorice-like smell, if you will, geranium, IBQ, which is like a leather, and oak moss and vanilla, right? That's kind of the 5 main ingredients in that base, from my understanding. Don't quote me on that. Again, I'm not a perfumer, just a guy that loves fragrance. So take these kind of statements with a grain of salt. That's my understanding of the mousse de saxe base. And maybe that exactly is the reason why Tuscany per Uomo kind of jumped into my head. Because number one, it has that anise top, but this anise in here is much more harkening back to the 70s. Like if you know fragrances like, Gerard Anthony's masterpiece, Azzaro pour Homme, one of the best barbershop fragrances of all time. It has this anise top, and so this borrows a little bit from that. But if you sort of are familiar with the way that these fragrances break down, the anise is much older style in execution. The anise smell in here doesn't come out in the top like it does in this or Azzaro pour Homme. The anise is kind of built into that base, that licorice part of the mousse de saxe base, right? But maybe because I'm smelling that anise and leather combination, it definitely gives me vibes of Tuscany per Uomo. And then on top of it, you add the oak moss, right? And you add this very Mediterranean style flower in this broom flower. And, Tuscany per Uomo just sort of jumps into my mind as far as execution style goes. But imagine, if you will, like a niche modern version, very buttoned up modern version of Tuscany per Uomo. Something along those lines. I think, for me, when I view this, just me talking out loud, I would say that I think this is a very good perfume. And I think that this is a solid house from what I'm kind of reading about it and getting to know about it. It seems like the perfumer is well respected. It seems like he's legit. It's not some BS front man, right? It seems like he is who he says he is, and the house is a legit house. And I've had a lot of people recommend this house to me before. And actually, I've been sitting on this sample for something like a year, but I've only tried it a couple times. And I'll tell you what, I think it's a solid house. I would like to smell more from the house. For me, though, my problem is at this stage in my journey, something like this that turns into something so wearable doesn't appeal to me as much. I want the crazy. I want the out there. I want the fragrances that people say deserve to be in a museum. I want something, I've got 600-700 fragrances. I don't need something that is necessarily wearable. I have a bunch of stuff that I could wear. And then on top of that, I wear my fragrances in situations where maybe others wouldn't. I would wear this to work. I would wear Descendres to work. I would wear this to social occasions or whatever. So, and I like how Descendres is more challenging, right? To me. So this wearability factor doesn't sell me necessarily, but I do think that somebody starting out who doesn't have a big collection, who wants to smell quality perfume, that seems to be properly executed, and some somewhat original ideas, you know, harkening back to something like Devin for me, but making it a niche type style really appeals to me. And there's not many houses that do it. And I really think Antoine Lee obviously likes putting these little breadcrumbs from vintage fragrances of past in his creations. But the fact that this Pierre Guillaume guy sort of did something along these lines really tells me he knows his stuff. And so this is a house I would love to explore more, but it's not something that I would go out and run and buy bottles of, I don't think. I think this is going to be one of those houses where I sample, talk about on the channel for a little bit. It seems like very quality, wearable perfume, and I think it would be somebody who is just starting out and wanting to get some niche bottles that, you know, they can wear in different situations. You know, for me, I just think that I'm a little past that in my journey right now, but I think this is very good perfume. I don't know how much this costs, though. Let me take a look. I guess I should have looked that up. Pierre, let's see. Guillaume, Papyrus de Ciane. Okay. So, according to the Pierre Guillaume, I hope that's how you pronounce his name, by the way, website, 100 mils is 160 euros. 50 mils, 110 euros. So very fair pricing. Even at retail, that is extremely fair, I would say, for this level of perfume. It's not overkill like some other niche houses nowadays. The inspiration, Papyrus, from the fountains of Arethusa. I'm not familiar with that. I'm not familiar with that fountain. To the brown waters of the meanders of Cheyenne. Its nobility is adorned with umbels of intense green radiance. Wow, okay. Papyrus de Ciane is a complex fragrance, dark and bright at the same time, combining the architecture of the great classics of the Chypre Green family. Chypre Green? Oh, absolutely. With a sensitivity imbued with the aesthetic codes of the House of Pierre Guillaume, Paris. Okay. So, the other thing I should mention is as the fragrance continues to dry, one very interesting thing that happens is this slight whiff of smokiness tends to come through. And mixing with that sort of mousse de Saxe base, if you will, with a little bit of the vanilla, a little bit of the leather, a little bit of the anise, it's actually really pleasant. And also there's a little bit of musk in the base, just a little bit of musk, that really balances everything out. That frankincense / musk balances everything out beautifully. I like this. I'm a fan. I am absolutely a fan. I want something more challenging, you know, like this is a good fragrance, no doubt about it. Quality stuff. It's just, you know, I hate to say I'm past this, but I feel like I am. You know, I feel like I'm a step past just wearable perfume nowadays, especially since I have these two. I think if I didn't have either of these in the collection, I could easily go for Papyrus de Ciane, easily. But, you know, for me right now, this is kind of one of those things where I smell, talk about it, and probably move on and never come back to it. But that being said, this is quality stuff, and I really appreciate the person that sent this to me. So obviously, between 2010, when this came out, and now is when he changed his house's name, because it was Parfumerie Generale. I actually like Pierre Guillaume better as a name. So, yes, interesting stuff. Very interesting. This code name, which gives a humorous take on the initials of perfume creator Pierre Guillaume, I guess that was the Parfumerie Generale, hints at the very free creative spirit behind this collection of perfumes started in 2002. True alternatives to all those mass market products with their bland, standardized formats aimed at winning over vast numbers of consumers, Pierre Guillaume's creations exhale their strong character with distinct and immediately recognizable scent identities that make no compromises. By exploring new processes such as photo affinage, photo refining, or smoothing olfactory peaks by ultraviolet radiation, his creations are imprinted with a vibrant or melancholic feel. The precious liquids are protected by heavy chunks of glass called diolens, simply numbered so their contents can be discovered free of any preconceived classification as men or women's fragrances, and with the base concealing the poetic creation, name, and olfactory type. Okay, so anyways, enough about the house. I think that's a good intro to the house on my channel. I would love to smell more of his work. I mean, looking on Parfumo, if I just click on the house's name, there's something like 7 pages in here. So they say he's got 25 numbers, but if there's 7 pages, it looks like he's got more than 25. It looks like he's got, 50 or 60 creations that he's come up with. So I would like to smell more from the house. I am definitely game to smell more from this house. Interested to explore this house further. So this has caught my attention. So anyways, I just wanted to share this quick little late night insight with you guys. If you have experience with this house, Pierre Guillaume or Parfumerie Generale beforehand, or this particular fragrance in general, Papyrus de Ciane, do let me know. This is solid stuff. Solid stuff indeed. Something I would definitely wear. Like if you gave me a bottle of this, I would wear it. I just don't know if I would go buy it at this point with my money. So anyways, that's my thoughts. I'd love to hear yours. Leave it in the comments. Thanks for watching. Cheers, guys. Catch you next time. Bye-bye.